Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 It's August 7th, 2022. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, entitled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan. We're in Text 1, starting a new chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Jai.
Jai. Narayanam namaskritya naram shavanarottamam devim saraswati vyasam tatojam mudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Utama Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naistiki. Text 1, Chapter 3. Uddhava Uvacha
Uddhava Uvacha.
Tata
Tata
Sa Agatya Puram Svapitro Chikirshaya Sham Baladeva Samyuta Nipatya Tungat Ripu Yutanatam Hatam Vyakarshat Vyasum Ojasa Orvyam Uddhava Uvacha Tatasa Agatya Param Svapitrosh Shikir Shayasham Baladeva Samyuta Nipachyatungad Ripuyutanatam Hatam Vyakarshad Vyasum Ojasurvyam Uddhava Uvacha Tatasagatya Param Svapitrosh Chikir Shayasham Baladeva Samyuta Nipachyatungad Ripuyutanatam Hatam Vyakarshad Vyasum Ojasurvayam Uddhava Uvacha Tatasagatya Param Svapitro Chikir Shayasham Baladeva Samyutam Nipachyatungad Ripuyutanatam Hatam Vyakarshad Vyasum Ojasurvyam
Uddhava
Uvacha
Tata Sahagatya Puram Swapitrosh
Tatasa Agatya Puram Svapitrosh
Chikir Shayasham Baladeva Samyuta
Chikir Shayasham Baladeva Samyuta
Bhatyatunga Vipuyutanatam
Nipachyatungad Ripuyutanatam
Atyavakarshad Vyasum Ojasavyam
Hatam Vyakarshad Vyasum Ojasurvyam
Uddhava
Uvacha
Tata sa agacha puram svapitrosh
Tata Sahagatya Puram Swapitrosh
Chikir Shaya Sham Baladeva Samyuta.
Jikir Shayasham Baladeva Samyuta
Nitacha Tunga Ripuyuta Natam.
Nipacha Tunga Rupuyuta Natam
Atam Yakarshad Yasum Oja Soryam.
Atam Vyakasha Vyasum Ojasorvyam. Oh, yes. Would someone else like to recite text 1 of chapter 3, canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam?
Uddhava Uvacha
Uddhava Uvacha
Tata Sagatya Puram Svapitrosh
Tata Sagatya Puram Svapitrosh
Chikir Shaya Sambala Deva Samyuta
Tikir Shaya Shambhala Deva Samyuta
Nipatya Tunga Dripuyutanatam
Nipatya Tunga Ripuyutanatam
Hatam Vyakarshan Vyasum Ojasorvyam
Hatam Vyakarsha Vyasum Ojasorvyam. Uddhava Uvacha.
Uddhava Uvacha.
Sri Uddhava said.
Sri Uddhava said.
Tata.
Tata.
Thereafter.
Thereafter.
Sa. The Lord.
The Lord.
Agatya.
Agatya.
Coming.
Puram.
To the city of Mathura.
To the city of Mathura.
Svapitro.
Svapitro.
Own parents. Chikir
Shaya.
Wishing well. Sham. Well-being. Baladev Samyuta. With Lord Baladev. Nipacha. Dragging down. Tungat. From the throne. Ripuyuta Natam. Leader of public enemies. Hatam. Killed. Vyakar shot. Pulled. Vyasum. Dead. Ojasa. By strength. Orvyam. On the ground. Translation. Sri Uddhava said, thereafter Lord Krishna went to Mathura city with Sri Baladev, and to please their parents, they dragged Kamsa, the leader of public enemies, down from his throne and killed him, pulling him along the ground with great strength. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. King Kamsa's death is only briefly described here because such pastimes are vividly and elaborately described in the 10th canto. The Lord proved to be a worthy son of his parents, even at the age of 16 years. Both brothers, Lord Krishna and Lord Baladev, went to Mathura from Vrindavan and killed their maternal uncle who had given so much trouble to their parents, Vasudeva and Devaki. Kamsa was a great giant, and Vasudeva and Devaki never thought that Krishna and Baladev would be able to kill such a great and strong enemy. When the two brothers attacked Kamsa on the throne, their parents feared that now Kamsa would finally get the opportunity to kill their sons, whom they had hidden for so long in the house of Nanda Maharaj. The parents of the Lord, due to parental affection, felt extreme danger, and they almost fainted just to convince them that they had actually killed Kamsa. Krishna and Balaram pulled Kamsa's dead body along the ground to encourage them. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Upakadamayam Danati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Panchakalpati Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 3 Text 1 Uddhava Uvacha Tata Sagatya Puram Swapitros Chikir Shayasham Baladeva Samyuta Nipatya Tungad Ripuyotanatam Atam Vyakarshan Vyasum Ojasuravyam. Sri Uddhava said, thereafter Lord Krishna went to Mathura city with Sri Baladev, and to please their parents, they dragged Kamsa, the leader of public enemies, down from his throne and killed him, pulling him along the ground with great strength. So in the previous chapter, Uddhava briefly reviewed very emotionally highlights of the Vrindavan pastimes. Yes, and here, so the beginning of this chapter, and now we go into the Mathura pastimes. The Mathura pastimes, and Uddhava continues to share with so much affection with Saint Vidura. But Prabhupada makes the point at the beginning of the purport. King Kamsa's death is only briefly described here because such pastimes are vividly and elaborately described in the 10th canto. So that's true with all the pastimes here in these chapters where Uddhava is reviewing. So you might say that these chapters of Bhagavatam are a brief review of the 10th canto, a brief summary of the 10th canto. Important history for our movement. So of course, Prabhupada started translating the Bhagavatam, starting with Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1, back in the early 60s in India. Right, and he came to America with his 3 volumes of the first volumes, the first canto, and then he continued his Bhagavatam translation. Now, of course, in that format with the word for word and the transliteration and the translation and the extensive purports. So Prabhupada didn't know how long his manifest pastimes, would continue. So there he kind of put other writing projects on hold, and he wrote the 10th, he wrote Krishna book, and he published it in 1970 with the financial assistance of George Harrison. Lots of stories around that. And because Prabhupada wanted to make sure that we, as Malini was emphasizing yesterday in the class, Prabhupada would say, if there's one book you read over and over again, it's Krishna book. So Prabhupada gave us a Krishna book, which is the 10th canto, not in this form with like the Sanskrit of each verse and the word for word, in, you might say, narrative prose form like that. So that was so important for Prabhupada that we have that, and that his movement has that. So and then Prabhupada continued with the 2nd canto and 3rd canto and like that. In this format with the word for word translation and purport. So yes, so the 10th canto gives these Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, extensive personal pastimes, right? Where we actually later today we have our Chaitanya Charitamrita group, and it's a section where Lord Chaitanya is traveling through the forest to Vrindavan, and then there's some encounter which is going to be more extensive soon, is some encounter with Prakshananda Sarasvati. And there's some purports there. So Prakshananda Sarasvati was a great scholar, and he was Mayavadi. And Prabhupada uses very heavy language, very heavy language about, he's a butcher, right? He's removing the Supreme Personality of Godhead's legs and arms. No, yes, God is great. He can't speak, he can't talk. So again, it's like for Srila Prabhupada, for these pure devotees, for Uddhava, for Vidura, this isn't just like some abstract philosophical thing and the Mayavadis say this. It's just like, if we imagine like our most dear friend and family member, person very dear to us, and someone saying, yes, well, actually they don't exist, or they exist, but they can't run and jump, and they can't play, and they can't sing, and they have no eyes, and they can't hear, and they can't speak. So it's just like, no, this is like this is very offensive. It burns the heart. Again, not just, oh, you're an offense, but like in a very personal way. So here in this part of the Bhagavatam, we have these most personal pastimes are narrated of Sri Krishna, narrated by Uddhava. And in the 10th canto, these are expanded on. These are expanded on. So Prabhupada so much wanted us to have Krishna book. And so personal means like it's all there, right? We're familiar with the analogies, everything in this realm, with all of its beauty. Krishna says, Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimad orjitam eva va tatad eva vavagacham tam mamatesham sa sambhava. Yes, Krishna says, know that almighty, beautiful, and glorious creations, this world, the material world, mighty, beautiful, glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. And that spark, that's called the super soul. That's called the Paramatma. So it's, like Krishna doesn't directly get involved with material creation. So the Jiva souls, were also a part and parcel of super soul, as are all the material energies. Then Krishna goes on there in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Ataiva paunatena kim getena tavarjana vistabhyamidam kritsnam ikamsena sijo jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge, which with a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support the entire universe? Okay. Yeah. So the material world is as beauty and mighty and powerful is, it's dull in comparison. It's dull in comparison. And so here, Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, now we're entering into Krishna's Mathura pastimes. So these are fully spiritual pastimes revealed to us, the full brightness, more brilliant than thousands of suns. Krishna Sva Dhammapagade Dharmagana Dibisaha Kalavas Kalanasham Drishamesha Purnako Dunodita. Upon the disappearance of Lord Krishna continues to be present through the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is as brilliant as the sun, like that. So it means it's all there. Here we're like, Prabhupada talks a lot in the purport about Devaki and Vasudeva and their fear. They're fearful that, like, they know Kamsa's always been wanting to kill Krishna, and Krishna slipped away at the time of appearance. Oh, but now that Krishna and Balaram are here and they're approaching, now Kamsa, this great giant demon, he's going to have a chance to kill Krishna. So they weren't thinking that, their teenage boys will have a chance against Kamsa. Like they're just teenagers. So their parents feared that now Kamsa would finally get the opportunity to kill their son, whom they had hidden for so long in the house of Nanda Maharaj. The parents of the Lord, due to parental affection, felt extreme danger, and they almost fainted. So like, it means in personalism, right? In personal spiritual life, all the emotions are there: fear, anxiety, love, affection, anger. It's all there, and it's all there in a way that deepens that most sublime goal of life, deepens our affection and desire and enthusiasm to serve. the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, like, let's say in this realm, like in this realm, spiritual fear, it could take forms like Prabhupada would say, his greatest anxiety is that his disciples are not fearful enough of Maya, right? So to cultivate a healthy, it's not a debilitating fear that sends us into depression and discouragement and let me just sleep all day, I'm so fallen. But a healthy fear that moves us to be vigilant and to enthusiastically take shelter in Srila Prabhupada. That's what the great souls do, take shelter in Krishna's internal energy. Mahatmanas tu mam parta devim prakriti mashrita pajanya nyanya manaso gyatva bhutatim avyayam. Krishna says, the great souls take shelter of my internal energy. Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the bhakti Shakti, this is the internal energy. Chanting Hare Krishna, this is the internal energy. Shuddha Sattva, the energy of bhakti. So we can have a healthy fear that keeps us on guard and keeps us away from false pride and arrogance. Like, I'm a devotee now, and so now I got it together. And to keep like, I'm weak like anything. I'm very susceptible. Again, it's not like a wallowing in I'm so unworthy, but it's like I'm very weak. So let me with intention take shelter in sources of eternal spiritual strength. Also, healthy spiritual fear, let's call it on our platform, like if we're not on this platform of Mother Yashoda, who's fearful that the tornado demon will take Krishna away. I mean, we can read about Mother Yashoda and Devaki and their fear and get purified. But also we can cultivate anxiety for Prabhupada's movement, anxiety for our own susceptibility to Maya, to have a healthy fear of the force of illusion, that I'm so easily attracted to illusion every moment. There was a conversation, and it was like a morning walk. And at one point, one of the disciples was formulating a question. Srila Prabhupada, sometimes we're in Maya, and Prabhupada interrupted. He said, sometimes? Okay. So, I think, yeah, well, mostly I'm Krishna conscious, but once every week or so. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and healthy concern, healthy fear, healthy anxiety for Srila Prabhupada's movement. Like, let us, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, anxieties, fears, troubles undertaken in your service, Sri Krishna, I regard as the source of my greatest joy and my greatest bliss and ecstasy. So to take on some anxiety, to relieve Prabhupada's burden, to relieve Lord Chaitanya's burden, let me take some anxiety to push forward, to share, of course, starting in my own consciousness, to share this Sankirtan movement, prasad distribution, holy name distribution, philosophy as it is distribution. Philosophy, that's so important. So that's part of the anxiety, right? That it's one thing if something is clearly Maya, illusion. It's another thing if in the name of the acharyas and Vaishnavism, in the name of Bhagavad Gita, in the name of Prabhupada, there's deviations going on. And there's a lot of that. So we want to cultivate the capacity to make distinctions. Knowledge is power. Power is the capacity to make distinctions. Yeah, to make distinctions. What is Prabhupada's actual Siddhanta and what's a subtle or not so subtle deviation? But even the devotees, they're not getting it. And this mainly we hear from Prabhupada again and again, read Prabhupada's books. like that. Ask questions to those who are sincerely following Srila Prabhupada. Well, okay, so this pastime in particular, about Kamsa, the Mathura pastimes. So, yesterday Malini and I were having some talk about the material context. So material context means it's the Kamsa context. Material context is or let's say some well-known anti-devotional personalities from back thousands and millions of years ago. Kamsa, Ravana, Hiranyakashipu. So basically the material arena, it's the Kamsa arena. And, it's not just pointing out there, starting with this own, my mind and my ego. So this is the arena. This is the arena of Kamsa, of Hiranyakashipu. Right, like these are not just great giants and demons of former ages. Like, this is the mentality. Ravana, he dressed as a fake sannyasi to get Sita away from Ram. Right, he dressed as a. So these are all these are real histories, and they have relevance for us. These pastimes. And so our opportunity in service to ourselves in the highest sense, in service to others, in service to Srila Prabhupada is, okay, how can I bring Krishna into Kamsa's arena? Yeah, that's what Prabhupada's doing. So it's the arena, it's the context of Kamsa. So Prabhupada came on the Jaladuta to bring Krishna into the context, right? And so Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is the very Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is a very substratum of existence. That, and this is important. Again, we later today we'll discuss the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in our Chaitanya Charitamrita group, and we have, Srila. The Prakshananda Sarasvati, and trying to take Krishna out of Bhagavad Gita, trying to take Krishna, even they do it, trying to take Krishna out of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sankaracharya himself didn't touch Bhagavatam, but his followers did, his so-called followers did. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Mudamate, my foolish followers, give up your word jugglery and just worship Govinda. These are statements from Shankaracharya. He's the author of Jagannath Astakam. He's the author of Govinda Astakam. Right. So it's described, so we would see like the compiler of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva himself. There's what he says and his own realization. We're familiar with the story. He was frustrated after he gave all the Vedas. And then then after he heard from Narada Muni, he went into a trance at a place on the bank, and at a place with lots of berry trees on the banks of the a place called Samyapras on the banks of the Sarasvati. And he went into a trance there with the berry trees. Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samya Panihite Male Apashat Pusham Purnam. The fullest manifestation of the absolute was Purusha, this Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mayam Chayad Apashrayam. And he saw, so there was like his realization of the most complete representation of the personality of Godhead was not the impersonal oneness. It wasn't the most complete representation of the absolute was Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And then he saw Yaya Samohito Jiva Advakam Chi Gunatmakam, that Paro Pi Manute Nartam Tat Kritam Chabipajite. He saw that the living entities were the living entities, we are not the absolute truth. There are three aspects of the absolute truth, and that's the Brahma Gyoti. I was just reading a lecture. Prabhupada, at first he said, like, it's like a lower aspect. But he said, no, not lower. It's like this, it's not as complete. Not lower, not as complete. Then there's Paramatma, and then there's Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the very ground of existence and the source of all spiritual material energies. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matasa ram pravartate im timatva bhajante mam buddha bhava samandita. Krishna says, I'm the source of all spiritual material energies, and those who get this, naturally they're inclined to worship me with devotion. And so Vyasadeva saw, so the three aspects of the absolute, the jiva is not one of those aspects. There's Brahman, there's Paramatma, right? So the jiva, of course, we're part and parcel of Paramatma. We're part and Paramatma is part and parcel of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Okay. And you can see that the jiva souls, that's us, are bewildered due to misidentification of the spiritual self with the material body. And you could see the solution is bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, anartha, because this identification with the body, it's called anartha, that which is superfluous to the self, that which is superficial. So anartho pashamam sakshat bhakti yoga madhokshaje lokasya jantat vidvams chakre satvata samhita. And you could see the solutions of bhakti yoga to realize who we are in the most essential sense and come out of the anartha, superfluous misunderstanding. And he said, and people in this age, even with all the Vedas he gave, the Upanishads, the Puranas, Rig Veda, people won't get it. So as a result, he was inspired and he gave us the Bhagavatam, including these narrations of Uddhava narrating to Sri Krishna, narrating about Sri Krishna to Sri Vidura. So so our opportunity is to bring the light of the Bhagavatam, to bring Krishna into the arena, the material context, the arena of Kamsa, starting with enlightening our own internal consciousness, and that's why it's like I mean, so sometimes, or often it can. I'm reminded of the parable or metaphor of the you were asking me the other day, Melanie, about like hope and like that, like the sparrow trying to empty the ocean. The sparrow, like this, so bringing Krishna into Kamsa's arena, into this whole material context, and bringing actual Prabhupada as he is, and it can feel like it's pretty hopeless, right? Like the sparrow, and I'm so weak, and okay, yeah, the sparrow got a few drops, and there's the ocean, like okay, like because it's very powerful, the context of Kamsa, Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, very powerful. And the sparrow, so there's hopeless. At the same time, we get to be like the sparrow, give our 100%, utsaha nishchaya data karma pravartana, give our 100% with enthusiasm, confidence, determination, patience, following the principles of sattva and following the acharyas. As Molly and I read, like, we're going to be careful and conscious of this term, the acharyas, right? Like, because, of course, back more than 20 years ago, I was in some correspondence with some leading pandits of a particular institution, and they insisted one thing is they insisted that Prabhupada is not present in his murti. No, these are the intellectual leaders, and they insisted that Prabhupada's a Purva Acharya, previous Acharya. So Prabhupada, at least speaking for me, and speaking absolutely, he's absolutely available for everyone as the current Acharya, our current Acharya. not Apurva Acharya. All right. I just disturbed Malini. Okay, so no, so he's the current Acharya. And if someone says, well, not for me, he's not. Okay, but then if someone says, and he's not available as the current Acharya, okay, then you're doing harm, you're doing damage. Then that's yeah, no, that's very not just dangerous. That's you're being destructive to people's spiritual lives. Yeah. So yes. So so to bring Prabhupada as he is into the context of Kamsa. So we get work like everything depends on us, pray like everything depends on Prabhupada and Krishna. So we get to like the sparrow with full enthusiasm, even though it seems this is beyond impossible, but with full enthusiasm, we get to give ourselves to emptying the ocean with trust that Garuda, the carrier of Vishnu, right? Garuda is there, Prabhupada's there, and they are, and they're Prabhupada, Abhay Charana, Vindam fearlessly taking shelter of Krishna. Prabhupada, Krishna, Srimati Radharani, and the previous acharyas. They're there to help the sparrow. They're there to help us. So it can seem like a hopeless endeavor trying to empty this ocean at the same time. No, I have full hope. First of all, my service is to give my 100% with joy and enthusiasm, and I have full trust and full hope that Prabhupada's there to give full spiritual strength and help with this mission. Well, I'll read this text again, Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 1. Uddhava uvacha tatasa agatya param svapitrosh chikirshaya sham baladeva samyuta nipache tungad ripuyuta natam hatam vyakarshad vyasum ojasurvyam. Sri Uddhava said, thereafter Lord Krishna went to Mathura city with Sri Baladev, and to please their parents, they dragged Kamsa, the leader of public enemies, down from his throne and killed him, pulling him along the ground with great strength. Hare Krishna, thanks for listening. Thank you, and welcome questions or comments. Any questions or comments?
I have a few, but
Malini.
Sure. Well, my first question is when I read that chapter, or no, I don't understand the title of the chapter. It said pastime outside of Vrindavan, because on the second chapter, practically all of Uddhava's sharing is pastime outside of Vrindavan. So I wonder what, it's just a question I have for a long time. And Anosria is raising her hand, so she has a question too.
Okay. Well, the second chapter, which is the chapter, I'm sorry. Yeah, the second chapter, which is the one before this one, it seems to me like Uddhava concludes with a verse about Krishna and the gopis.
It concludes with a verse about Krishna and the gopis, yeah.
Yeah, and the different pastimes.
But also pastimes is mostly Hastinapur and Dwarka. And
Not in the previous chapter.
No, that's my sense.
Not in chapter 2.
Most of them is about the Pandavas and the Yadus.
No, that's at the beginning of that chapter. Then Uddhava goes systematically and he starts from Krishna's appearance. Before that, he's kind of jumping around here and there. But then once he starts systematically in chapter 2, it's the Vrindavan pastimes. And with the different, the great wizards who were able to assume any form, and Kaliya and the Yamuna. And herding the bulls with his cowherd boyfriends. Right. So yes. Yeah. So yeah, Uddhava does jump around here and there.
Jump around because you go back to Upasana and
Right.
yeah.
But then once he starts going systematically, like around text 26, then it's starting with the birth pastimes.
Yeah, 26 and there's 33 verses. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that's why I don't understand. Is most of the verses are not about Vrindavan.
Yeah, but Prabhupada often does that with the chapter titles. Like at the end of the 19th chapter, Canto 1, Prabhupada titles it The Appearance of Shukadeva Goswami. Well, Shukadeva Goswami only appears at the very end. So Prabhupada often gives the titles based on kind of the closure.
You're saying Prabhupada because it's not Vyasadeva who gives the title to the chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam? And Prabhupada translating or kind of.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know of Vyasadeva giving titles to the chapters, but maybe he does.
Okay, so what you're saying is that often the case that the chapter is revealed towards the end, and I've noticed that too, because even recently when I was reading, it's like it doesn't seem that it's matching the title, but then towards the end it does match the title of the chapter, and then here it matches the title of the next chapter. Okay. Anasuya is raising her hand. I have no questions.
Anasuya.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hi.
Thank you very much for class. I was appreciating parental affection, and also, as you said, teenage boys killing Kamsa, and both parents, right? So Vasudeva and Devaki, and also, everyone is just amazed. And so it just made me feel like really joyful. I know it's really a weird thing for killing a demon, but it was like I could just imagine them dragging Kamsa, like parading in the streets, like really like a lot of fanfare, like a parade, like really excited to share their victory, and for all to see. And it just felt like childish, yet really grown up. Like they were kind of in this between boyhood and manhood, and showing their parents what they're able to accomplish. And it feels like an inspiring story for other teenagers. Like, this is possible. I'm able to show my parents what I can do. And I didn't have that kind of strength when I was a teenager. Took many years after teenage years. So I just appreciating the story, and really was just feeling appreciating the joy that was brought to their parents, and the relief that they brought to their parents, that they don't have to worry anymore. And so part of it is just coming of age as a story, and just appreciating the story this morning.
Thank you, Anasuya. I'm moved by how you're emotionally moved, and the way you express it. It goes to aspects I'd never really considered, like these pastimes mature. It's like Krishna and Balaram, a coming of age story. And like I'm moved by how you're in the emotion of it. Like, look, Mom, look, Dad, look what we did. Look what we did here. We're beginning to grow up. And and Prabhupada makes that point that now Devaki and Vasudeva, they're relieved of fear. And so Krishna and Balaram, they're good sons. Yes, we were relieving the anxiety of the parents. And so I appreciate where you're absorbed there. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question, and it's connected with Anasuya Prabhu's sharing, and because I was thinking, Prabhupada said something about relieving their parents of the torment from Kamsa, and we do know that Krishna and Balaram didn't need to come to age, like the age of transition of being teenager to accomplish killing of Kamsa. Krishna killed Putana as a nursing baby, and so we know that he could have, and Balaram too, could have killed Kamsa way earlier. And so, like when Srila Prabhupada say, "Oh, and they really relieve their mother and father," there is a part that says, and they could have done so much easy earlier, and even save them from so much torment. So that's always the part about spiritual life to be challenged by, at least. That often I see people being challenged by, and that Krishna has the power all the time, before he was born, when he was born, and he didn't need to come of age to kill Kamsa, and still he didn't save his parents or relieve their parents from their distress before 16-year-old.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for that. Yeah, well, that's the meaning of pastime. Pastime means there's no need. They didn't need to wait till this juncture of their pastime. At the same time, Krishna and Balaram, they're enacting pastimes in a way to evoke the emotion, Of course, with not even an eye blink, Krishna can destroy so many Kamsas, but they're evoking the emotion of the gopis and the cowherd boys and Devaki, and they're evoking this loving emotion, which sometimes takes the form of ghastliness or fear. There's a comment here. I'll read the comment. Garuda and Damayanti write, is there a place I can find where Srila Prabhupada expresses the presence of pure devotees in their Murti's pictures? Yes, there's an abundance of quotes from Srila Prabhupada like that. Yes, so the answer is yes. There's a letter, specific letter to Jadharani. There's a letter to Tushta Krishna. There's a conversation 1966 in New York. It's interesting. There's many places. I can give you exact references if you want to write to me by email. Again, they write, is there a place I can find where Srila Prabhupada expresses the presence of pure devotees in their Murti's pictures? Yes, and Prabhupada simultaneously expresses that if one's not a pure devotee, then they're not non-different from their picture, meaning that means that's called idol worship. But and the pure devotees are able to be present in millions of places at once, like Krishna is through their Murti form, like that. So actually, recently I was looking at a collection of those quotes, and one of them is a conversation in New York. There's a woman, like in 1966 in New York, and the woman says, well, like, isn't it that the pure devotee, the pure saints, that they're non-different from their picture? She had some realization, and Prabhupada went on and said, yes, and that is possible on that pure platform, making clear, not on the impure platform. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, I looked
like Christ.
Yeah, like Christ, for example. Anyhow, I looked in the database, and they deleted that conversation.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
The new one?
The one I have, yeah.
Did you tell again that?
Not yet. I wrote it to Naveen Krishna Prabhu. I said, isn't this interesting here? Yeah, there's Well, there's the first page of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Like we shouldn't be surprised.
Well, I'm surprised that Ekanath is his job to protect Prabhupada's legacy, and I will challenge him on it.
Do it.
Because why we don't have the proofs, but it seems that they are the one who need to be challenged, because if they let things being deleted or challenged or all that, then what's the point of having archive? Then we cannot trust the archive anymore. I'm trusting the archive very much.
No.
I put so much trust in the archive.
No, the whole 1975 version of the Chaitanya Charitamrita is not there. It was there in the 2003 database. It's not there now. I asked him directly.
Then I don't understand what the archive is doing. What kind of archive is that?
Well, I have all respect for Ekanath Prabhu, but I think he feels his hands are tied in some respect. Yeah, the whole original.
So we need to archive.
Very important. Very important.
We need to,
These are important realities.
Also, I think part of that, the response to that question is that Srila Prabhupada himself establishes Murti, which is really relevant.
Yeah.
Because he establishes Murti when his body, external body.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, he doesn't have external, internal.
Sure.
This is pastime
Sure.
body. Was so emaciated. And so it's like almost like it shows a transition from, okay, worshiping me in that form that can, move, and to that form that doesn't move, but there is no difference between me and my Murti. That's how I understand this pastime, at least. Yeah.
I'll be more precise in language.
Okay.
The Murti form is a form where a conditioned soul like me cannot perceive movement.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's an example, because sometimes we'll hear like, oh yeah, Prabhupada, he's still there in his Vani, but not in his Vapu. No, he's fully 100% present in his Vapu, in his Murti forms, in his picture forms. Sure, we might say there's a pre-November 1977 type of Vapu that it currently is not, manifest. And there's so many other, so many forms of Vapu that are completely manifest. And the Prabhupada established his Murti. Yeah.
And all the dreams. So
Yeah.
many people have dreams.
Yeah.
Prabhupada gives them instruction.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
I have another question.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
Garuda.
There's Damayanti, Hare Krishna.
Damayanti, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So Prabhupada established his Murti form before he left our physical presence. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, how long before he left did he establish his Murti form?
It's an interesting question. I guess my question is how come you're asking?
Oh, well, I'm curious, but the original question is someone very randomly that I never spoke to about this sent me an article to read about gurus, and now I'm in a conversation and I'm responding. So that's sort of the back. I'm not getting into the details, but that's the background. And then I'm just curious when the time frame.
Yeah, well, that could be pretty easily researched, the exact date. I think the first Murti established was Vrindavan. And I think the Vrindavan temple was opened in 75. So it's probably
I don't know if it was established right away.
not right away. Yeah. Okay.
I
So-
don't know, I don't have any
Right.
reference, but my sense it was in 77.
So it might have been early 77, maybe as early as 75. Okay.
I read
Thank
it
you.
somewhere. When
It's in the biography, it's in the pastime, the memoirs. Okay, well, yeah, if you need any support in corresponding about Guru Tattva and Prabhupada's full presence, full 100% present, to be the main giver of Divya Gyan, giver of Diksha. Otherwise, the philosophy, I'll call it Vapuvad. They'll say like on November 13th, 1977, Prabhupada, he was capable to be the current link and the main giver of Divya Gyan. But by November 15th, 77, he lost his potency. He just became impotent. It's sad, but because a particular form of Vapu disappeared from our presence. So the whole philosophy is based on the idea that that the spiritual potency is dependent on Vapu, which is completely opposite what Prabhupada taught and demonstrated. It's based on Vani, of course, like that. So yeah, so how was Prabhupada available as the current link? Again, in November 13th, but not on November 15th. What's the philosophical reason? There is none. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Melanie.
If there is no other question.
No, there's not.
When you presented the three aspects of the personality of Godhead,
Three aspects of the absolute.
The three aspects of the absolute, and you said we are not none of the three, and at the same time, Brahman is made of the part and parcel of Krishna, like Brahmajyoti. So in that sense, we are made of the absolute is Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan.
Yeah. So
the Jiva is Brahman, is
part is an aspect of Brahman.
It's an aspect of Brahman.
Yeah.
So
So is the material energy.
So is the material energy, yeah. Yeah, like in that part of the Bhagavad Gita, it defines Brahman in so many ways. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for that. So we're part and parcel of the absolute, but we're not the complete Brahman.
Not the complete Brahman, because there is the material energy part of Brahman.
Yeah.
The reason why is because there is also Prakriti.
And any particular jiva is just sometimes the Vedas might have statements that indicate you are Brahman. Yeah. Hare Krishna. It'd be like, let's say if we're at the beach and someone points out like, yeah, this is the ocean. Now all we can see is maybe, like 10 miles, we just see the surface. The ocean's actually got, the beach is like 3,000 miles and it's 3,000 miles across and it's miles deep at place. But still, to give some idea, like this is the ocean. It's really just a tiny sliver. So sometimes the Vedas might say like, you, the jiva, are Brahman, but it doesn't mean that we are the full ocean.
Well, Brahman doesn't include Paramatma and Bhagavan. So the distinction is in Prakriti, material nature.
Yeah, all the energies.
In quantity also.
Quantity also. Yeah. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
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 Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all for being here.